Hello again, and welcome to another episode of I want to talk about this album. And hey, would you look at this? It's something a little bit different today. There are a couple of differences here. One, I'm on something called StreamYard, which I learned about last year or heard about last year. Didn't really learn about it until recently, and it was suggested to me by a friend of mine who does kind of a little rinky-dink vlog or podcast or has a channel, even more rinky dink than mine, and maybe even more Mickey Mouse, some would say. And so I'm trying it for the first time. And after my disastrous experiment using Skype with Chris McClernand recently, I've learned my lesson. So that's one difference. The other difference is, hey, I've got a special guest here. Look at that. I don't know if he's special or not, but he's a guest. A guest, we'll say. I don't want to raise anybody's expectations. And you might notice he looks a little bit strange, but that is his actual look. So don't be put off by it. It's Mr. Rust of the great Rusty Eye, whose record I've got it right here. We're going to talk about featured in today's episode. This is called Possessor,
hmm
and this is Mr. Rust. So, Mr. Rust, welcome to the show. And how can we start? How about you? You can introduce yourself, talk about your band, about Rusty Eye, give a little history. I think anybody who's watching this, and there are not too many, and I don't think any of them probably know about you or Rusty Eye. So give us a little history.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm Mr. Rust, as you said, from Rusty Eye, founding member, bass player, and vocalist. And Rusty Eye started back in 1995 in Mexico City. We did a bunch of demos, a bunch of like little recordings, always like DIY. Very punk in that sense. And by the year 2003 we made the move to Los Angeles. And here in Los Angeles we continued, of course, and we put out a bunch of records, we toured, we did all that good music stuff.
Okay, and who's in the band with you? How many people in the band? Let's have a little history about the band
Yeah,
members.
for sure. Well, it originally started as a four-piece, but shortly after the singer left and there was no singer, so I jumped into trying to sing and play bass, right? And that was very difficult at the time, but I did get a good grasp of it, and then we remained like that, like a three-piece. And by 2003, drummer and singer Miss Randall joined the band, and then we did well, as you know, we're Kiss fans, so we always like try to do that dynamic where everyone in the band sings, right? So uh one actually leads the singing and the others do the kind of like the backup or singing the choruses, and that whole dynamic, right? Our first lineup with our original guitar player, Rodrigo, whose Rusty Eye name was Dr. I. We had three singers, right? And then he left before we came to Los Angeles, and then our current guitar player, Tony Mordland, he's never really been a singing guy, right? So then the vocals were split 50-50 between me and Miss Randall.
That's Julieta, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And now she's left Rusty Eye for the second time. So we are kind of like figuring out what's next, right? Like right now we're currently on hiatus. Now I'm a family man, right? So it's a little bit more difficult to be doing the music as full time as I used to, right? So I'm just taking it slow, taking it easy. We're like thinking about what's the best move for us, right? And the first time when she left around 2013 or something like that, it was very difficult for us to replace her, right? Because she plays the drums and she sings at the same time.
Yeah,
But
you need two people to replace one realistically.
right, we tried that, but there's a catch with this, with the whole female thing, right? And this is where Miss Randall is really innovative in her craft. Usually, when you have like a female player, there's like kind of like very marked styles in metal, right? So Miss Randall plays very heavy but sings soft, right? Like she doesn't growl or anything crazy like that, right?
Yeah, like kinda
And
clean, almost, kind of I don't know if it's operatic vocals, but yeah,
yeah,
she
in a
seems very
sense,
she's not a growler or a
no, it's kind of like a mix of that whole operatic thing, as you said, with a little bit of like punk grit, something like kind of like L7-ish, like type of
mm,
thing mixed in, right? So on one hand, if you get a girl that can play and sing whatever instrument it is, if it's drums, if it's guitar, because we tried different configurations, right? Uh, we were never able to find one that if we find someone that hits hard, they sing hard, right? If we find
yeah.
someone that sings soft, they play soft. I mean, soft like like a Judas Priest or whatever type of like drumming, right? But we never found a good fit, right? And we tried to uh, get a male drummer that could hit hard, and then have a female rhythm guitar player that was kind of like like playing simple things on the guitar, like kind of like John Bon Jovi when he pulls out his guitar, he's just like
Uh,
bullshitting with it, It's
yeah.
he's not exactly like shredding or anything.
Vince
But
Neil
Vince
on,
Neil,
same old
same old
situation. He
situation.
Klaus Meine on, Coast to Coast plays guitar. Bruce Dickinson used to play on
Right. Yep.
Revelations.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Kind of an ego
Exactly.
thing.
Kind of
Yeah.
like that sort of thing, right? So we went with that configuration, but it didn't work for many reasons, right? This was like very short lived, and then Miss Randall just all of a sudden came back, right? And then we put out two more records after that with her, right? So right now we are well, they told me someone in Mexico told, like things have changed a lot, right? So now in particularly in Mexico City, like there's a more like established scene, and there's more independent stuff, and there's labels, and there's a million bands and stuff like that. So someone actually suggested to us that it wouldn't be hard to get another female drummer, but from Mexico, that would like to like kind of like step up to the challenge and kind of embrace the playing and singing and that sort of thing. I was informed there's a little bit of a wave of female death thrash bands type of thing, right? So what we said is like, you know what, like we're not going to bother looking for anyone. If anyone's interested, let them come to us. If we see that that configuration is like works for us, then we go that route. If not, which is what we're going to do, we're going to continue writing, recording, and we're going to kind of do what type of negative used to do, right? Like I don't know if you know, but none of their records actually have real drums. They're all programmed.
Oh, no, I
and
didn't know that. No,
and
I didn't
then
know.
Kenny or Sal, all those guys that play there, when
Play live.
they play live, right? But they had nothing to do with the recordings, right? So
Hmm.
that's another option. And we also have male friends here and in Mexico that would like gladly help us out with this, right? Because like here in LA, you need a player, and they want the salary and like that sort of thing, right? And we're not at that position to like have someone on the payroll or something like that, right? So and also I think it's more genuine if people in the band want to do it rather than just collecting money and doing a shitty job.
Yeah. And you mentioned a couple of minutes ago the words when you were talking about replacements and things like that. You mentioned the words. I think you said death and thrash. So for anybody who hasn't heard Rusty Eye, and I said there's going to be like 40 people watching this, and probably none of them have heard Rusty Eye. How would you? And I don't know if you feel comfortable doing this. How would you describe Rusty Eye's music? I mean, not everybody. You don't. There's technical death and thrash and speed metal and black metal and grindcore, and it doesn't have to be that specific. But if
Of
you were if
course.
you were gonna describe Rusty Eye's music,
Well,
how would you describe it?
Yeah, this one's actually very interesting, right? Because a lot of like music industry professionals and that sort of stuff, they always kind of been like no, no, don't say that or don't do that or like make it like very general, and and we've never really tried to like nitpick and make it like, oh, we sing like black and death trash with this and that and like and 20% of that and 2 tablespoons of that, right? No, it was never like that. But if we go back to the very like real origin of the band, I think this is the best way to explain it, right? When I started out, I was a little bit out of phase with what my generation was listening to at the time, right? And this was like ever since when I was like a kid. I was like seriously thrilled with the music that people 10 years older than me were listening to, right? Like none of the people my age were interested in, say, like Guns N' Roses or Poison or whatever the case it was, right? Motley Crue, all that. Like this was actually happening at the moment, but people my age, like they didn't care about that, right? And then that started to progress, and I started listening to like heavier like type of stuff in the 90s, right? Like a Sepultura was a big thing, and death metal like kind of like wasn't that whole thing from Florida, the Florida death metal was a thing and all
Yeah,
that. And at that moment, my generation had finally caught up, right? So they were obsessed with Metallica and Guns N' Roses, and to me that was already old. I was like, oh, they sold out, they suck. And then in Mexico City, like I said, it was like different than it is now, right? So it was like very difficult to find players, like and especially people my age, right? So we'd get like a drummer, and we're like, hey, you know what, like let's write this song that sounds kind of like Halloween with the. And they were like, no, I want to play like knocking on heaven's door by Guns N' Roses, and like chicks dig it and that sort of bullshit, right? And we're like, no, screw this, screw that. So we kind of like started building a lot of resentment for what was contemporary, for what was popular, right? So we came to the conclusion that our perfect, how Kiss says, we made the band that everyone that we wanted to watch type of
that's right.
thing.
Yep.
That's exactly what we did with the stuff we liked, right? Like as long as it was cool in our books, like with like kind of like take elements from that, right? So we were never like a full like death metal band or a thrash band or like a classic like a new wave of British heavy, but we mixed all those things, and we figured out a way on how to do that in a seamless way where when you go into a Rusty Eye record, you're going through the experience, and you can start like we throw a lot of like kind of like flags where you say like, oh, like that's like Black Sabbath, or that's like Rush, or that's like Iron Maiden, or that's like Sepultura, but it's kind of like it's we make it not noticeable, and that became our signature style, right? So there's a lot of hardcore punk, there's a lot of traditional punk, there's a lot of new wave of British heavy metal. There's black metal. There's that metal. There's at moments it gets a little bit of an industrially like vibe. Like we put the keyboards. We do like no boundaries, no style barriers, right?
Yeah, a couple of those things you mentioned, I've got it here. I've got some notes that I took while listening to this album, and a couple of things that you just mentioned, I will mention in some specific tracks. Yeah, to me,
Hmm.
it is a mix. I have to say, it's a very unique band. It's not I mean, yeah, you can see here elements of some of those things you mentioned. Also, maybe like horror metal, kind of like
Oh yeah.
maybe
Hmm.
Possessor. I mean, the album is called Possessor, and the album cover, which I will, you know, why I want to talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the
Of
album
course.
cover, I'm
Hmm.
sure. Um, there's a little bit of the symphonic element to it. A couple of songs have, at least on Possessor, a couple of keyboard samples, a touch of White Zombie. I don't know if you know which song I'm
Yep.
talking about.
Hmm.
Um, and just there's at least one song that I wrote here. Um, yeah, we'll get to that one. I wrote that it's just a straightforward metal song. I
Uh
don't know
huh.
if you know which one that is. But yeah, you do have, and you have some now let me tell you something, and I think I mentioned this to you months ago. when I when and by the way, I should mention before I continue, if I don't know any if anybody knows, but the reason I got this record and other records was Mr. Russ was just I was shocked when he did this. I think it was around maybe in April or May last year. He sent me a package. He didn't tell me
Hmm.
what it was. He said, "Give me your address. I want to send you something." And I didn't know what it was. And I got it a couple weeks later. I opened it up and it was I think two full length albums, Rusty Eye albums.
Uh-huh.
There's this one in Dissecting Shadows, which maybe we can talk about that in the future. I think the EP, there was that great boombox that
Boombox,
the
yeah.
promo thing,
Hmm.
which I'll show when we do Dissecting Shadows down the road. So it was new to me and still is new to me. And I told you this when I have like 10,500 songs downloaded on my
Hmm.
phone. And I often just listen to sometimes, I choose an album to listen to,
Right.
and sometimes I just want to, lie down or sit and, do stuff around the house and have random music playing.
Shuffle it, yeah.
Exactly. I put on shuffle. And there have been a couple of times, maybe 3 or 4 times when and I think I've sent you a message when this happens, say,
Uh-huh.
man, this just happened. And I'm not overly familiar with all 10,500 songs. So some songs come on, I think, who is this? And then, maybe when the vocals start, I go, oh yeah, I know who it is. And there were a couple times where a song came on. I thought, who is this? And then I listened to it for, oh, it's Mastodon. And then it played for a while. And then the vocals came out. I thought, this is not
This is
Mastodon. I looked on my phone and it was Rusty Eye. And there are a couple of songs on here for sure that really have a real Mastodon, very kind of weird, quirky, odd, kind of herky jerky. I don't know if it's time signatures or what it is, but they're
well,
just odd,
it's
like
interesting
Mastodon.
you mentioned that because I was just going to add, well, the Rusty Eye music's never been easy to play. It's very
It seems difficult. Like,
instrumentally
is
demanding,
it
right?
technical? Is it just kind
Well,
of technical?
not with that intention, right? But this is something that very interesting that happened. When it came to all these definitions and stuff, the progressive metal crowd like started embracing us, right? And
Oh,
there's always been we're actually majoritarily labeled as a progressive metal band,
hmm,
and this label, the ones who know, but it does confuse a lot of people, right? Because they say, oh, progressive metal, they think like Dream Theater, like right off the bat, right? And it's like, no, it's not, because they're progress. A reviewer said once, it's not progressive because they sound like Dream Theater. It's more like because they what they call a genre bend, like crazy, and the music's like hard to play, and that's also happened a lot of times where. Because it has that punk feel to it, like some people assume it's very simple music to play until they want to play one of her songs on the guitar, and they're like, then they're scratching their heads like,
hmm.
how the hell do you do this, right? And that's where that whole progressive thing comes into play. And we do listen to, not to a lot of progressive metal, but a lot of progressive rock, and that's also a bit where that's coming from, right? And I'm a full record guy, right? So I'm not like one of those people that listen to just the singles or
Yeah,
the
me too.
latest flavor of the month. I see the record as an experience from beginning to end, right? And this is a craft that's been lost over time, and now with digital music, like that's kind of like not the same, right? So I always put a lot of emphasis to keep these traditions, right? To make the record a concept, to have its own, not necessarily like a rock opera or something like that. That all the songs are the same topic, not in that sense, but more than the record is an experience for beginning to end, right? And it has to have a character. It has to have a build up, a climax, and a way to end, all that sort of stuff. And another kind of a little bit of a lost tradition in metal music in general is the soloing in the guitar, right? Like you have to have a solo, right? So that's another thing that we've always made a conscious effort to always put, right. And then we also play around with that, kind of like I guess we learned this from a Merciful Fate, right? Like where the song starts and it starts with the solo, right? Like the solo is not necessarily at the in the middle of the song, right? Or it ends with a solo, or that sort. But there has to be a solo. There has to be guitar prowess along the way.
The opposite of Saint Anger. What Metallica was
Right,
thinking was Saint
exactly.
Anger. Yeah, the opposite.
And you don't think about these things, but yeah, like there's a lot of newer bands and stuff, and like you don't even think about it, but if you actually like dig deep into it, like you're like, wait a minute, like there's no soloing, right? you know, or not a solo per se as it was known in the 80s. And of
Okay.
course, all this comes as a blessing and a curse, right? Because being original in an industry, music industry world, like they kind of like tell you that that's what they're looking for, but it's really not. They need to lump you with someone, or like they in order to market something, you need to say like, oh, this is like this or this is like that. So that's always been we've always had a problem with the commercial side of music because of that, right? And it's funny that you mentioned Mastodon, because we don't sound like it. We do have a lot of things in common. Once again, on the influences are where the music is coming from and how it's being portrayed, right? And well, we're gonna dig into Possessor, but I want to give you a little bit of background that's relevant to this, right? The previous album was Stendhal Syndrome. We came up with the idea, and this is going to sound familiar to a very popular band nowadays called Ghost, right? But mind you, we did this like 10 years before Ghost did. But we were like, why don't we add a 70s retro flavor? Why don't we add a lot of the occult? Why don't we add a lot of hard rock, like kind of like in the vein of the Blue Oyster Cult? And like, that was our record, and this record was like its first version we did in Mexico in 2002, right? No, actually, yeah, at around 2002, 2003. And then due to a studio accident, it got deleted. And when we came to Los Angeles, we had to redo the record, and there was no budget to do it. So we kind of had to split it out and put the first three songs as a single, and then finish the rest, and then kind of like merge them together, right? So it lost a little bit of its cohesiveness. We also had a different guitar player in three songs. It got a little messy, right? And um, but that was the idea. We were doing what Ghost was doing, right? And when we showed this to the industry, they said like, basically, what is this crap? This is a joke. This is we're in the album cover, we're even wearing like white masks, like
Mm.
Ghost does, right? Like unintentionally we did that long before. And they were like, no, this is not marketable, like you should quit music, this is a disaster, like that style is horrible, that will never sell. And then Ghost comes along with that exact same formula, and they blow it out of proportion, and they make money on all fronts, right? So that's the thing, right? Like sometimes people are a little short-sighted, right? Like they want the new band to be exactly like the band that's doing good on the label, and kind of like piggy back on it or something. I don't fully understand what the logic is, but to say like, oh, you're or like the industry doesn't want original bands, they don't want original ideas. That's a fact.
Okay. Yeah, whatever works, I guess.
Hmm.
And a couple of quick things, hopefully quick. Sometimes I can be, I can extend things. But a couple of things before we get to the record Possessor, and we'll go through that track by track as I always do. I think I want to talk about. I think it's interesting, and I don't know if anybody else would think that's interesting. How did we meet? I think this is a pretty cool story about
Oh
how you
yeah,
and I met.
absolutely. No, I mean, it's funny how things work, right?
Yeah, very funny.
I When I was living in Mexico, I was going to college, right? So I and actually after high school, it took me while to get into college, because that's not really what I wanted, right? I wanted to focus on the music 100% and Rusty Eye, and I had the plan to go to Los Angeles, but my family wasn't too happy about it, so I kind of had to go to college by force, right? And then I said, well, if I'm gonna go to college, I'm going to study film. And also, my family was like, well, we're not paying for that shit, so uh, pick something decent,
More
I
realist,
guess.
more
Right?
practical.
Yeah, more practical. So I said, well,
Yeah.
okay, what else can I do? I like visual shit. I draw, like okay, I'll study graphic design, and I know college would take me, but I did happen to pass the exam at the Ibero college, right?
Yep.
And I enrolled there, and I only went there for 1 year because I was going crazy with the distance. I had to. The first class was at 7 a.m. I lived in San Jeronimo in the south of the city,
Oh, that's
so
as far apart as you can get. Yeah,
I
Santa
had to.
Ibero's in Santa Fe,
And then
right?
that
Santa Fe?
place, yeah, that
Yeah.
place is a shit show, right? So there's nowhere to park. You have to get there early to claim your parking spot. So I had to wake up at 4 a.m. every morning, like uh, grab a frozen tamal, microwave it, eat it on the way there,
Very
arrive,
Mexican.
yeah,
Frozen tamal.
uh,
No,
snatch,
very Mexican would be fresh tamal. Maybe that's very gringo,
right,
frozen
yeah.
tamal, but okay.
It had to be because I had to get the whole supply, right? And it was so early that you didn't even have like street vendors, and you know how it is, it's like cold and it's like shitty, right? And then
Mm,
I would get there super early in the morning, snatch a parking spot, and then take a nap until 7 because I was like tired,
yeah, of course.
and then I'd go do the classes all day and then drive back through to traffic, right? So that was killing me, right? And then I came from a very liberal arts type of high school with like all these like free thinking philosophies where like you can do whatever you want.
Was it
You
was
can
it like a Montessori school?
No, it was more like very Americanized, right? So it was
Okay.
like, hey, you know what, like you can have, how they are in Mexico. Like here, you can have like long hair and tattoos and like no worries with that as long as you get good grades. Like you can do whatever you want, but good grades. Like no one's gonna judge you for anything at that like disciplinary level, right? And then I got there, and Nivero was very corporate. So everyone's a number. No one gives a shit what you think or what you feel, And I kind of like didn't fit there. But one of my classmates was Lilia,
My ex-wife.
and yep, and
Well, at the time, this was what, 98, 99?
98, yeah,
Yes, I
99.
didn't even she turned out to be my girlfriend, then my ex-wife, and or then my wife, now my ex-wife. But yeah, at the time, I didn't even know her in 98. Okay, so that's Lilia. Yeah, go ahead.
And we became friendly because I would wear my Kiss T-shirt from that reunion show they did with Pantera back in
Pantera at
'96,
Photosol.
right?
Yeah.
So I had my old raggy Kiss shirt. So she approached me and she's like, "Oh, like you like Kiss? I love Kiss," and we would like talk about Kiss. And I identified a couple of the music people in the classes and that sort of thing. And then in the very beginning, they kind of like keep everyone together, and then as you progress, you start moving and your classes start changing and your schedules start changing, right? But in the very beginning, it was very much of the same people all day every day, right? And that's how we met. We even lived through, I don't know if you know about this, the school went on strike, and
I don't think I knew that.
we would have to they were like, well, it's a very expensive college, you still have to pay, and but you cannot come to the school, there's no classes, there's nothing. And the teachers were like worried because, well, the shit keeps turning, right? So you have to take the classes some way somehow, so we would have to drive to the teachers houses and shit like that, right? Just to continue with the program and not get trampled over. Like, okay, back to school, but now it's finals, you know. So yeah, we lived through that. I remember going with Lilia to these random places, random houses, you know, to with our classmates to continue the semester, right? And I was like, after 1 year, I was done with that. I was like, no, you know what? I need a different environment. So I transferred to Universidad Nuevo Mundo, which is it was along that philosophy, free thinking line, and there were like little classes, like only like the whole class only had like 10 people for the 4 years, and then people started like to drop out, so you'd graduate only three or four type of thing, and that was more personal, right? And then they would let you like smoke in the classroom and like like all like
I
more
remember,
my style.
I remember Lilia telling me about at least one of her professors, and I don't know if you were in this class or not. And he would smoke in the
In the
class.
class, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, as he was teaching, he would be
Well, this
smoking a
this
cigarette.
this other school I went to, it had like ashtrays in the seats, like the
What a
benches,
different
right?
world.
So I know, right? So I was like, hey, you know what? Like, I kind of like this is like kind of like better for me. And then I graduated there and moved to Los Angeles. And I kind of like lost touch with Lilia until that day at El Chopo. Like we ran into
Yeah.
each other, and my guitar player Tony. We would not take girlfriends, wives, company, friends, no one to a lot of shows. That was kind of like a rule of touring, right? Because if you don't have the budget for it, like it kind of like creates a dent on the cost of touring and traveling and that sort of thing, right? Now there is always like very special occasions, right? We're playing with Sergio Rao, so we were playing like Vive Latino and stuff like that, and that's like, hey, you know what? Like this one's like rockstar level comfortable where we can actually bring people, right? So when we have like big shows like that, we would travel with wives, girlfriends, friends, So that was one of those, and this was the first time Tony brought his girlfriend to Mexico City, right? So he told her about El Chopo, like he had been there a bunch of times and all that, and then when he was
He's
like,
American, right? Tony
yeah,
Tony's
uh-huh,
American. Yeah.
yep, from Virginia,
Okay.
when he was like, "Hey, let me show you about this place. Let's go to YouTube." All the videos were in Spanish, right? So that's how they found your channel, because you kind of like fill out the void in the niche, right? So they're like, "Hey, you know what? Like here's a Chopo video that's actually in English, right?" And then they became fans of yours. They followed your channel.
And
And
this was
then
2016 or 2017, I think, right?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
And then Tony actually saw you at El Chopo,
that's
like
right.
doing your episode, and he
Yep.
he stopped you like, "Hey, it's that guy. Hey, I watch your channel, right?" And then there was like this very funny moment, because we all kind of like gathered back at the meeting spot, and Tony's like, "Hey, you know what? I met this YouTuber. I watched his show. He explained the whole thing about the English and the girlfriend." And then at that very precise moment, Lilia like pops out of nowhere, like, "Hey, what's
Yeah.
up? Haven't seen you in forever. How are you? Like, how you been? This and that."
Yeah.
And then you came. Everyone
Yeah, it
came
was
at the
amazing. Yeah, we saw Lily and I saw you. You were with somebody. I don't know who it was, but you were talking to somebody, and Lily said, "Oh my God, that's I can't remember if she said Paul or Mr. Rust, but she said, wow, and she had told me about you before, but I didn't. She had to remind me. I said, who is that? She said, it's that
Mhm.
guy. I said, oh yeah, that. And then I think we saw Tony talking to you a few seconds later, and I said, hey, that's the guy who was talking to me
Right,
earlier.
yeah,
And so we were going, what the hell is going on? So like
right,
there's me and Lily here, you and Tony here, and you were together, Lily and I were together. Tony knew me. I didn't know anybody. So Lily said she wanted to go say hello to you. And then we found out that you and Tony were in Mexico City for the Viva Latino Festival, which is a
yeah,
big festival playing with Sergio Arau y los Heavy Mex.
correct.
And then so, it was just incredible coincidence, amazing. Me from Canada, you and Lily from Mexico,
Right.
Tony from Virginia, you guys living in California, me moving to Mexico, and we all, the four of us,
Uh,
kind of came together that day.
Adel Chopo, right? Yeah, I
Yeah, El
tell you this,
Chopo.
this Hollywood script writers, they cannot come up with shit like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And you and I have stayed in touch since then, since 2016 or 17,
Yep.
whatever it was. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I
And there
started
is,
watching your videos too after that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that was how I learned about the. I guess at that point, yeah, I guess I knew at least by name. I knew Rusty. I didn't realize. I think at that point, that you were, I guess, so prolific that Rusty I had. How many albums do you have? Four or five full length? Four full
Uh,
length?
like I think five full lengths
Five and a couple of EPs or
and
singles.
live records, yeah, and singles
Yeah.
and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I didn't realize, until quite like, a couple of years later, at least, I think that you were so prolific.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, so, yeah, that was a pretty cool story. So here we are now, and, we'll get to Possessor, and there is something else that I wanna ask you about. I'll try to remember to save it for the end. If you can, remind me, because I have a tendency to forget those
Okay.
things, and it'll be good for you. All right, so we will talk about the Possessor now, and here it is one more time. Now, I mentioned earlier I wanted to talk about the album cover, or you can talk about the album cover because you know, and maybe other people know, I'm a big Motorhead fan, one of my favorite bands
Yep.
ever.
Mm-hmm.
And Motorhead fans, I don't know if there are any watching, but they might recognize the name down here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You
Joe
wanna talk
Catania.
about that?
Yeah, of course. Well, when we did Possessor, we were like out for blood. And I'm telling you, we had that
And
experience
what
with our
year?
previous
This is, by the way, sorry, this was 2009, right?
2009. Yeah,
Yeah, 2009.
this whole process like started like around like 2007, right? Like right after Stendhal syndrome, right? And we were doing very good on the street level type of thing. Like when we came to Los Angeles, we had nothing, right? And we lived a very greedy life, just playing bars and that sort of thing for years, and that we started building a little bit of a fan base, and we would play like sometimes even like 7 days a week. You know, everywhere there was a show, we went, and sometimes we'd even do multiple shows during the day, right? Like there was something in the at noon, and we'd go and do the show, and then we'd do something later at night, right? But it was very greedy, very grassroots, hardcore, like the fight to be heard, you know. And then we started kind of like conquering the local Hollywood scene and that sort of thing, and then we started feeling like we were just like going in circles, right? Like we didn't know like much about how things really worked and all that. So we always knew that if we were signed to a label, that was the right decision, right? And a lot of people were already things have changed too, right? So they're like, hey, you know what, you don't need a label. They take all the money, they take away your creative freedom, like they can cut you off if you don't sell, you know. Like there's many cons, but the pro is that, well, they finance your project, right? Like they promote you, you know. And then we were like, well, whatever it is that will get us that will get people to know who we are and get us like heard, like we take that route, right? But in parallel, we were also developing as a DIY band, and we were like um flyering and emailing and giving out promos and that sort of thing, like kind of like very grassroots. And we finally broke out of that first Hollywood scene when we started actually meeting people from the underground metal industry formally, right? So we started making friends with people that worked at the Century Media label, at Nuclear Blast, Relapse, all this like underground metal stuff. And they were always very once again, like they thought we didn't fit. You're unmarketable, you're unsignable, but at the same time, these people, they pay them, particularly the ones we met, like they pay them to seduce bands into the label. So they grab a couple of people they're friendly with or they like, and they kind of like throw them in the bandwagon, and then they just start like giving you backstages for shows, and like free records and perks, and we started like getting very close to that, right? So we didn't want to do, and this is something that happens a lot. Band puts out a record, and then the industry talks shit, and then the band like refines it for the next one, and changes the style to fit, right? So we were very conscious of not doing that, but we needed something big to convince these people that we were for real, right? Like they thought we were too garagey, too underdeveloped, and I mean, we were good at what we did, but we didn't have like the budget to be like at the to the level of what they were doing. So we were striving for that quality, right? So everything that we were gonna do for the next record had to be blown out of proportion, right? And well, they didn't like the artwork, they didn't like the production, so we really had to step it up, right? And the cover was a very important thing at the time. um, female fronted, as they call them, bands were a big thing. I guess they were like trying to make heavier versions of what Evanescence did or whatever, right? And then on the other hand, you had a lot of retro trash bands that were emulate. They were like 20-year-old kids emulating the good days of trash, just like flat out imitating Megadeth or old Metallic or whoever, right? So we were kind of like caught between that, right? So there was an like the first A&R that wanted to sign us. He ended up signing a band called In This Moment. And his logic was like, well, Julieta's a female singer. This is what's in, but she's playing drums. You cannot see her. So they were like, hey, like either drop those guys or drop the drums, and we'll make it happen. And she was like, no, this is what I do. And then second guy comes around, and he's like, well, I'm gonna sign a band called Warbringer that is like flat out trash. Like, you guys are trash, but you're not really trash, because there's a girl singing, because there's keyboard, like that whole you too much hard rock, like, no, like, I need something that's like literally carbon copy of uh P cells or whatever, right? So they went with Warbringer. So we lost those two shots, right? And then now a bigger fish in the label, kind of like a director level type of guy. He actually understood our vision, and he said, "Bring me a good record, and I will sign you." Right. So that was Possessor. Unfortunately, when you're doing things on your own, that you need this doing music costs a lot of money. We didn't have any jobs. It was like very difficult to do, right? To make a big production with nothing, right? So it took a little longer than expected. And when Possessor was finally out, the guy had left the label. So then that's where, okay, like strike three out. No, we're gonna continue DIY and screw this label shit, and that's what we did, right? So out of all that sentiment that we really needed to come up with something like really impressive, no stone was left on cover, right? The record cover was like a major thing. So we literally went to Lemmy himself and said like, hey, do you think you can give us Joe Petagno's number? And he said he lives in Denmark. I was not expecting that. I was thinking like England or something, but he's American, right? So we thought he was just gonna pull out his little cell phone he used to have, where he played like games and shit, like one of those very old Nokia's or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And just give us the number. And he's like, no, he lives in Denmark. So he said, I'll get you the address." And then we went the next day to the Rainbow. He had the address on a piece of paper, gave it to us, and then we contacted him. So the exchange was like, hey, like, hi, Joe. let me refer those to you. Like we need a with an album cover. Our record name is Possessor, and then he's like, yeah, sure, pick from this catalog, right? So he sent us a bunch of like random illustrations that he had, like very good, of course, but like nothing really fit, you know. And then you also had this thing like where you could use it, but someone else was already using it.
Oh, like he
Uh,
licenses, like it's like a license to it?
yeah, that sort of thing. Like, hey, you want to use this one? Like, yeah, use it. By the way, this band's already using it, right? And then it's like, well, I don't want to have the same cover as those guys, just with a different logo. So
Yeah.
and mind you, this was not cheap, right? So we were like, no, like, what if you did a custom one? And he said, well, that's going to cost more money, but I certainly can do it, right? So we wrote kind of like you do with AI right now, nowadays, right? Where we wrote the whole plot for the album cover in an email, right? So we said, well, we're thinking uh, something kind of like Snaggletooth, where it's the main face in the center, like kind of like a motherhead cover, and then but we don't want it to look like Snaggletooth, right? So a variation we were thinking that would be cool is that rather than having like metal and chains, to make it organic, right? So like what if it was a gorgon with like snakes for hair, like kind of like Medusa, right? And then that whole thing with the nose, I sent him a picture of a zombie from an old grindhouse Italian movie that's like so greedy that the zombies are not supposed to have the tip of the nose, but then the actor actually has it. So they painted the tip of the nose a different color, right? So it, it's it's a very weird look because there is a nose, but there's a gap, right?
Mm.
And we always thought that zombie looked terrifying because of that defect. Of course, they were not going to put a full prosthetic or chop the actor's nose, right? So that's kind of like how they sold it, but the look was terrifying. So we kind of like copied that. So we explained the whole thing with the nose, and then we said, you know what, like Black Sabbath, Live Evil, we want to reference the song titles with like little things in the background, right? So you have the house by
Ah,
the cemetery, you have the demon with the wings, you have um the Jerusalem cricket right
I was just gonna
there.
say, is this the cricket here?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we said, "Hey, you know what? Like now that we're going like balls out with this, why don't we make it a gatefold, make it like horizontal, and can you illustrate us?" So we sent a reference picture of the band. That's actually us walking down Hollywood Boulevard, but he put us in that like whole apocalyptic landscape as. And we said, and make us look like zombies, like we're like rotten or something, right?
So this was based on an actual photograph. You said walking down Hollywood Boulevard right there?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay.
And no, he did an amazing job. And then we put a wire to Denmark, and then he sent on the mail. He sent a CDR with the full quality graphic. He actually painted this physically, of course. So he has the original. Of course, it doesn't have our logo or anything, but he keeps
No.
the. And he said, "Well, if you ever wanted, it's here, but that's I would love to have it, but the price is not." Yeah,
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah,
but
it doesn't when I see it, I would never think it doesn't remind me of Motorhead or Joe Patano, but when I saw his name and you look at it, the mouth especially, it's got the fangs
yeah,
and it's the front teeth are kind of broken. And then more than anything is the tongue, except it's not shaped like a penis like on so many Motorhead records,
right.
but it is kind of, you can
And there's
see.
no hidden swastikas either.
Oh, I've never heard about the hidden swastikas. Are there
Yeah,
are
the
there
the,
hidden
the
really?
first the first Motherhead, It has like just like Charles Manson, it's got a swastika in between the eyes,
Yeah.
and they changed it, right? So like it's only certain editions that have it.
Ah, I've
The
never seen
one
that.
the one you have, the one with the white record,
Yeah.
actually it's the original one, so it does have it.
Really?
Yeah, check it
Let
out.
me take a look. I have it over here. Hold on. Here it is.
Well, let's see if yours has it because some don't.
Is it on here?
No, yours doesn't have it.
No. Okay. Okay.
Mine.
I've never seen that.
Well,
I've
let me
never
tell you,
heard
I
about it.
I bought it in France, and mine has it. And then I opened it up, and the record was defective, right? Like the plate was moved.
Oh, I remember
So
you told me about that.
yeah, so you put the needle, and it's sort of like to
It
move
was
everything
off. I think you
off
told me it was off.
center.
The hole was off center, right?
Yeah. So I
Yeah, I
said, okay,
remember
I'm
that.
I'm gonna fix this myself. I'm gonna find the center and make another hole with a drill, and that didn't turn out good. So I bought it again, kept the jacket with the swastika, and put the good record in it, and then just I have the other copy hanging on my door.
I remember you told me that. Yeah, but I don't
Yeah,
remember anything about the swastika.
yeah.
All right.
Look it
Oh,
up.
well,
Some have it.
hmm. All right. Well, anyway, it's pretty cool that you got Joe Patano to do
And then
your
there's
record for.
more interesting art stories to it. The picture inside where we're actually playing the pictures of of us playing live. That's at that's at the whiskey, and we were. Um, I think that might have been when we opened for Doro Pesh. And then the other picture, the one we're in the morgue, this one was taken by that one. That was taken by Gene Kirkland, who
Oh,
was a
also famous.
Rip magazine
Yeah.
photographer, and we met him through Lon Friend of Rip
Publisher. Yeah.
magazine
Yeah.
fame.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is actually a very cool story. We became
Ah, yeah. I
friendly
see up
with
here. Yeah. There's the credit here. Photo by
yeah.
Gene Kirkland.
We got friendly with Lon Friend, and one day he said like, hey guys, you want to go see Queensryche at the House of Blues? And we were, this is of course the before Jeff Tate left the band, right? So we're like, hell yeah. And then we went to the House of Blues. They used to have a kind of like a second floor with tables, right? So he had this big table right in the center, right above everyone, and he had like 10 seats at that table or something like that. This was I was like freaking out, right? Duff McKagan was one of his guests, and then Gene Kirkland was another, and all these VIP people, and then we're sitting down, drinking, watching the show, and then in the middle of the show they put the spotlight on our table, and Jeff says, oh, thank you, long friend, we love you, like uh blah blah blah, like thanks for coming, like and I'm like, shit, like we're in the we're like where you're supposed to be, right? And there was another he said Gene on a little bit of a blind date or something, I guess, or I don't know if it was Lon, if it wasn't, but there was this woman, Anne, and she was kind of like out on a date with Gene, and we all met. We met her, we met him, you know, and this is actually very interesting because I walked out and she was on the phone, and I was like eavesdropping a little bit on her conversation, and she was I guess she was talking to a girlfriend or something, and she was saying like, you know what, like this this Jin guy, like he's very nice, but I don't know, like kind of like unsure about him, right? And fast forward, they got married, and we
Ah,
went to that wedding, and it was one of the craziest experiences in my life. Slash was there, Geezer Butler was there, Lita Ford was there, like shit, you name it. It was crazy. We sat down at the same table as Michael Ackerfeld from Opeth. Was like such a an experience, right? And then we became friendly with Gene. We did a couple of pictures here and there, and we said like, okay, we need to do something like insane, right? So we said like, have you seen this movie called Reanimator? And he's like, yeah, I think I've seen it. It's from the 80s. And we said, well, they have all these like morgue scenes, right? But we don't want like a real morgue, because real morgues, they don't look like the morgues on those cheesy horror movies, right? Like we want those silver, like kind of like closets, and like it needs to be non-realistic, if that makes sense. So we rented um, a movie set that had
wow.
one of those. And of course, movie sets are very expensive, right? So we said, hey,
Yeah.
you know what? We're not filming. We're we're only taking pictures. We're gonna be in and out. Like, can we do this in 2 hours instead of like the whole day? So they agreed. We only paid for 2 hours, and then guerrilla style, Jean got like some sort of like intern to like helping with the lights and all that, and some other girl did our makeup, and they took the pictures, right? And there's an additional photo from that session that's on the CD, behind the jewel case, where when you take the CD out, which is us
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the morgue table, and there's like a green corpse on the slab with and it's covered. You only see the legs and the feet, right? And he came up with that idea, and that was the makeup girl. She rolled up her pants and got in the blanket, and the blanket was actually part of the photo gear or something like that. It wasn't even a prop, right? So he's like, hey, what if we did it with he got like all enthusiastic, like, why don't we do it with a corpse? And then we did a couple more photo shoots with him, and we were getting very ambitious. We wanted to do something underwater, where we were kind of, like the mafia, how they do the concrete shoes.
Yeah.
We wanted to do that, where we are like in the bottom of the ocean with buckets of concrete on our feet, and we're tied up and drowning, right? And we did the whole planning for that, but that's when Julieta left and shit got weird, and we never got to do it. But he was like, yeah, I'm a trained scuba diver, like we were gonna build a tank. It was like it was all set, but it never happened. And then um we kind of like stopped the more ambitious photographs, but we haven't worked with him anymore. But I would love to do it again. And now, some other crazy fact about this: our record Possessor, with this Reanimator pictures, end up in the hands of Stuart Gordon, who he passed away some years ago, but he's the guy that actually directed Reanimator. He
Oh,
saw that, he heard the record, and then he called me to audition for the Reanimator theater play, because he wanted the zombie to growl. So this was one of the weirdest experiences ever, because I'm not an actor. I don't even know how an audition works, right? So they just told me to go to his house in Studio City. I arrived there at night, like probably like at 7 8 p.m. I knock on the door, and fucking Norm from Cheers opens the
George
door.
went.
Yeah. And I'm like, he looks at me, and he's like all be there and mean, and he's like, what do you want? I'm here to see Stuart Gordon. Oh, you're here for the audition, like, come in. I'm like, okay. So I walked into the living room, and then he's like, okay, like, this is my music director, this is my producer, I'm Stuart Gordon. I'm like, shit, I know, of course I know who you are. I was like freaking out, and then on top I got Norm from Cheers in the room, and he's like, this is the guy I told you about, like, and he's like, show them what you can do. And I'm like, oh, like, what do you mean? And he's like, growl. I go like, "Arr, arr," so it's like, well, now can you do it to the music? And then the producer guy jumps on the piano, and he's like Stuart, I don't know about this, and I'm like, well, yeah, okay, like, what do you want me to growl? And he starts playing like this melody, like da 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 da, and I'm like, I'm like, well, guys, like, and they're like not satisfied. Stuart is like, yes, go do it. I told you this is like our guy. And then the other two, like, they're hated me. They're like, I don't know about this, and then they're like, well, I think he's too short for a zombie, and like that long hair, and like, I don't know. So no, he's like, but he sounds like a zombie. And then I'm like, well, okay, like stop right there, guys. Like when you growl, there's no notes to the growling. I don't know if you know this. It's what they call, it's monotone,
Mm,
and you can make it fit if you do the right note, but all your phrasing is the same note, right? And there's a lot of metal singers that sing that way, especially the screaming and the loud ones. Like, they're like, basically, it's always the same note, and you can move the note, but it's always the same. Like, there's no growler that goes down a melody. You see what I'm saying? Like, no, you just can't, right? And they couldn't grasp that concept. And also, like I was saying, well, also, I need a microphone, I need a loud PA to, like accentuate what I'm doing, right? Like, this is not like I'm singing here for, like, West Side Story or Cats or something, like
yeah.
it doesn't work. This is like metal. It doesn't work that way. And Stuart gets a little boombox, and he plays Possessor, and he's like, sing. So I'm like singing my songs on top of the recording, and he's like loving it. And the other guys were like, now next. And then they actually got like this very normie looking guy, and he would just go like, arr, because I did go to see I was invited to go see the play. Like, well, I lost my shot at acting because these guys, they didn't like my look or my growling.
That's like what Mike Patton does. He did all the well, I mean, he didn't do the acting, but the voiceover, the voice acting of I Am Legend, or I yeah, I Am Legend. And I guess
and
he's
and
done other
and
things
that
too.
was another thing that Stewart was saying, like, no, no, like, we put him behind the stage, and he just like screams with the microphone, and then the actor actually like pretends he's doing it. And they were like, well, I guess, but we can pre-record. Like, they were just not sold on my skills, and I don't blame them, because, like I said, I don't think
Yeah,
I'm
it's your first
Broadway
time.
material, right? But
Oh, it's still pretty cool.
yeah, it was definitely a good experience.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to the album. You ready to talk about the album? We'll go through
Yeah,
track
for
by
sure.
track. All right. You know how this works. You can talk for a few seconds, or a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah.
minutes.
Hmm.
Anything you want to add? Any stories or anything just you want to say or not say about any track? I'm sure you'll have more to say than I do. And as I showed you, I did. I got some notes here. So going through this track by track, it's Rusty Eye Possessor. The first track. It's not really a song. It is called. We talked about it a little bit at the house by the cemetery. It's just a minute 7 seconds. It's just an intro. It's
Intro. Hmm.
instrumental. It's just I've talked about this before. It's filler. It extends it, right? It's just more like a kind of a
Right.
spooky intro. Yeah.
Well, we wanted to behave like the whole sequence of the album to be like mimicking like a grindhouse
Mm,
movie type of experience, right? So there's the introduction, there's an interlude, and then there's an outro, right? Like, you know uh introduction, it's all the previews, all that sort of thing, and then the interlude is go get your popcorn, and then the credits is the outro, right? So
yep.
that's
Mm,
conceptually what we were trying to do. And in this at the house by the cemetery, it's actually very difficult to play. And we it's basically just a rhythm and one of those, like I was saying, like Merciful Fate, like solos on top of it. and it had to have the blast beat. It was I mean, I love that little piece. We actually have used it to open live performances a bunch of times. Like that's like our opener, right? But rather than breaking in into the Day of the Dead song, we just play something else, right? So that's what
Okay.
we did with that.
All
And
right.
now 11:02 Day of the Dead, which I'm
Yeah, this
gonna
is the
give you
second track, Day of the Dead. Yeah.
you know how it's 11.02.
Yep.
That's because at the time you couldn't put the slash on the
Oh,
digital
digitally?
files. Yeah.
That's right. I think you still can't. You can have a dash. You can have like
Well,
the
now you
not the
can,
slash. Okay,
because now
okay.
the file gets interpreted a different way than the tag and the
Interesting.
name.
All
But
right.
back in the day, you couldn't, right? So
Yeah.
this is when we're already like putting out stuff on like digital services and all that. So we had to like work around the constraints. So that's why the dot and the motive to put the this one's actually very interesting conceptually, right? uh, Here in Los Angeles, we've noticed that there's a lot of Mexican trends that kind of like come and go and change, right? Like
Yeah.
before time, people here were obsessed with the lucha libre, and everything was luchadores and masks and all these like clothing brands, and everyone was using them. And all of a sudden, the high fashion brands, like they got the luchadores and and then when we came, well, avocados had their period too. You know, and people had never had an avocado, and that was the cool thing to eat, right? Pastor like had a big boom too, right? Like
Yeah.
right now, the current one with the hipsters and all that is birria. Like everything is beer, and you go everywhere.
You know what? I swear, even in Mexico, birria, I swear I'd never heard of birria until like 5 years ago. And now I see birria everywhere, including on my street.
And then they
It's become very popular.
and here, like when it gets trendy like that, they just use the name. It's like beer. Like you're like, yeah, but this is not goat. This is beef. That doesn't
Mhm.
matter. It's beer. Chicken beer. Like what the hell are you talking
Well,
about?
you know what? Just to we're getting off topic here, but I'll tell you, I thought, what the hell is birria? Like, is it the style of meat? It could be anything. And I had birria about, I think it was in the middle of January at a
Hmm.
little puesto. And I asked the guy, what exactly is birria? And he said there can be, it's kind of like barbacoa. He said there can be
Yeah,
birria de res, birria de chivo, birria de borrego, or whatever. Um, so
Chivo is because it's from Guadalajara. Actually, if you
no.
want to have good birria, make sure it's the Jalisco style.
Okay,
That's the
okay.
one.
Yeah,
And here
the
you can
guy,
find it like specialized. But if you go to like mainstream places like Chipotle, they have beef, beer. Like
yeah,
they
of
use
course.
birria the shit out of everything, right? But it's
Yeah, but no, birria is everything here now too. Very in the last 5 years, maybe. Um,
so Day of the Dead was the thing, right? And we were trying to do not necessarily a PSA or an educational thing, but we wanted to legitimately sing about the Day of the Dead, right? And that's the reason why we wanted to have the date on the name of the song. And then there's a lot of references in the lyrics, like we talk about the marigolds and the sugar skulls and
yeah,
the death coming back and all that, right? So we wanted to
yeah, I mentioned that the sugar skulls there. Yeah,
and you know what, the record comes out and we get a nasty review on a big publication. I think it was could have been Metal Socks or Revolver. I don't remember. It was a huge one, and the review says like basically, what is this crap? What kind of metal band sings about marigolds and sugar skulls?
they didn't know.
That's not scary. What is this garbage? And we're like, well, we're trying to uh, do a little bit of cultural education here, but completely backfire. Like, that's not scary. That's not metal. Like,
Yeah, flowers,
flowers,
sugar.
sugar, candy. Like, what the
Mm.
hell is this? So we were like, well, we tried, but the people that get it, right? And
I get it, of course.
we uh we were gonna do a video for Day of the Dead, and we heard that Hollywood Forever Cemetery does a big Day of the Dead festival, right? So we wanted to get footage of that, and we should have known better, but we were purists. So we show up with our cameras, dressed up, we're ready to fucking do it, and there's no one there. Oh yeah, because Day of the Dead, it's celebrated the weekend before Halloween.
Mm,
So we were there
yeah.
1 week late. So
Yeah. Whoops.
we were there on the date, right? And no, it already passed. It was last week. What are you guys doing here? So no video. And then we tried to get footage from someone that did a documentary in Oaxaca, and the documentary turned out to be a bit of a failure. And the guy had all the footage, and then I said, "Hey, can we borrow some of your footage to do a video?" Yeah, sure. And I said, like, so how much we're paying this guy? And I said, I think we should give him $400. And everyone in the band and management, they were like, "Are you crazy? You're gonna pay that much for like 1 minute of footage?" And I was like, "Well, the guy, his documentary failed, and like if he gets $400 out of this, like it was all worth it. Like I'm just trying to do something good, a nice gesture."
Yeah.
And
Helping
then
out.
we go to the guy, and it's like $400. I want $30,000
Oh my God.
for a minute of footage. And then the video producer said, like, "And who the fuck you think you are, Spielberg? Get the
Yeah.
fuck out of here." So no, we just couldn't do the video.
Oh, too bad. Um, yeah. Let's go on to track three. This is Mondo Kane. Now, this was one that the notes that I wrote here, that this one had a weird, the intro, the beat was kind of weird. This was, I
Yes.
thought the intro was kind of Mastodon Primus
Uh huh.
sounding very strange. And then it went into kind of set like some more traditional, like a galloping verse, a little bit Iron Maidenish. And then I'm sure there's some piano somewhere in the middle,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
your
of
piano,
course.
okay.
So
Um, and
le-
then I think towards the end, this one got kind of thrashy, no?
yes.
Okay.
Well, this one, I haven't mentioned this, but part of our secret recipe is that when we do songs, usually like bands, they come up with the music, and then they kind of like adapt lyrics to it, right? When we do songs, in order to maintain this whole cinematic aspect, we start off with the concept. So we say,
Yeah.
why don't we do a song that's about this, right? Or about, or kind of like that movie, or kind of like, why don't we do a song that's about ice and being like trapped under it, right? Rather than just coming up with a riff and saying like trapped under ice on top, right? So this one, well, Mondo Cane, or like formally, it's Italian. It's Mondo Cane. It means
Ah,
a
dog's
dog's
world.
world.
Mm.
So
Ah, yeah, of course.
it's
Okay.
shockumentary film from the 60s that goes, these crazy Italians, they went all over the world singing, filming, sorry, weird aspects of different cultures, right? Like everything that a culture does that Western culture might find a little bit unsettling or weird, like they would film it, and then they would have the guy exaggerating, the narrator exaggerating the thing, and it's like, oh, the people in Borneo, they eat monkey skulls, and and then they feed them to their children, and stuff like that. So when this was the first shockumentary ever made, then they started getting gnarlier and gorier and crazier, right? And then they end up turning into traces and faces of death and all that. And then
Yeah.
this end up turning into something that we know nowadays as reality TV. So this is the first glimpse in human culture of reality TV in the form of a film, right? And when this movie came out, it was very taboo, and it was censored. And I mean, you look at it nowadays, and it's like very tame. Like in Spain, they bullfight, and like shit like that we're like very used to nowadays, or like things like that, right? It wasn't really that crazy, but when I was a kid and being into horror movies, I would hear from the elders that that was the worst of the worst. So I was very scared of that movie without even knowing what the movie was about. And then when I was a teenager, I got it at the El Chopo, and I like felt dirty holding the VHA tape, and then I played it, and I was like, okay, this is it,
Yeah.
you know. So but there was something very powerful about the name. It's Italian, and we were trying to like pay a homage to those Italian movies. And then we have a very special guest doing those keyboards that you are mentioning, right? And this is probably your biggest claim to fame in the cult world, because we got to perform with a Claudio Simonetti from the band Goblin, the progressive band that did all the soundtracks for all those crazy Italian movies. Like they did most of the Dario Argento soundtracks, and many others. I mean, like it's like a progressive rock, like cult legend, right? It's and more people get to know it, and they're obsessed with their instrumentals, right? Like they only have a couple of records that it's their own music. One's very famous. It's called Roller, that has a devil. That's their logo. It's kind of looks a little bit like the Black Sabbath devil with the wings, but this one's playing the violin. You've probably seen it because it's pretty much everywhere. And look them up, Goblin, and
Never heard of Goblin.
like crazy, like cold from the 70s. And we got a hold of Claudio, which is the keyboard player, and well, debatable nowadays because it happened like there's Claudio's version of Goblin, and then there's the other guys doing Goblin, and they share the
Ah, it's
same
one
name,
of these.
one of
Yeah.
those, right? But Claudio was said like, hey, like we're very big fans of Italian grindhouse movies, Dario Argento. Like we're gonna do a song called Mondo Cane. He, of course, he knew what that was because Mondo Cane also had the first Italian crazy soundtrack, right? So that's he was like, yeah, like of course I'll do it. And then he did all those crazy passages with his synths and his Moog synthesizers and all that. And then he sent us the track, and he was like very happy with the result. So we actually invited him to play on another one, which is Wings of a Demon. We'll get there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we actually have him on two of the tracks, right? And to this day, like no one like believes us that we actually played with him, like that big of a legend he is. And here's
I've never
another
even heard of him or them.
oh, check them out. You
Okay.
that's a great find. um and this is here's a very funny story, right? I mentioned before that my mom wasn't too happy with my music, right? So once I read the Iron Maiden biography, Run to the Hills or whatever, right? And I remember, I think it was Dave Murray. He said, "You know what? Like your parents are never happy about your music, but there comes that moment where they see you on the telly, and then they go like, 'Oh my God, my son's a rock star,' and
He
then
made it.
they just need that little validation right there to appreciate your music, right?" So I said, well, that's interesting. So my mom went to Italy on vacation or something, right? And she says, "Hey, I'm in Italy. Do you want me to bring you anything?" And I said, yeah, like if you see a record store that kind of like sells like crazy shit, like just get me some Goblin vinyl or CDs or whatever they have by the band Goblin. So she sends me a picture. She says like, well, right outside my hotel, they have this store, and she sends me a picture of the store, and the sign of the store has a witch flying on a broomstick. And I'm like, I don't know what they sell there, but I'm pretty sure they have Goblin there. So just go and ask the guy, hey, like, do you have any Goblin records? And then, and which ones should I say? Doesn't matter. I don't have a single one of them. Just whatever Goblin they have, just get. So she goes to the guy, and it's like, do you have any goblin? And he's like, well, not in stock, but I can get it to you tomorrow. Like, what do you, what titles you want? And then my mom is like, well, whatever you can get. And then the guy goes to his computer and looks at his inventories or whatever. Like he was gonna bring them from, I guess, like a partner store or something. And he said, well, I have the Suspiria, the Deep Red, the Dawn of the Dead, all these movies. And then it's like, yeah, I'm Possessor by Rusty Eye.
Ah,
And then my mom is like, "Hey, that's my son." And then the guy at the store is like, "Yeah, bullshit." It's like, "Yeah, those are those guys that they did the songs with Claudio, and that's like a crazy record." It's just like, "Yeah, that's my son." And the guy at the store wouldn't believe her, right? So that's where I earned my validation.
why
And then I was
lie
like, "Well,"
about something like that? Who's going to lie about
and then I
something
was
like
like, "Well, that one don't get because I actually have a whole garage full of them."
that?
But
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Wow, imagine that going all the way to Italy and then you find something like that.
and then, well, the whole progressive thing, as you were mentioning, like the whole mastodon crazy time signatures and all that. Well, we were going to play with Claudio Simonetti, right? So like we had to like kind of like step it up on the progressive side. So we kind of like accentuated all that, and kind of like the riff was actually, we were kind of like trying to be goblin from the start, right? Like that's
Mm,
uh Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Actually, I don't know if you know their Tarkus record. We were trying to do something like Tarkus, and that's how that riff with the weird time signature, and then we made it metal, and then that's one of the very few songs where Miss Randall actually growls. So it's and it's a fan favorite to this day. We did a video for that, like nothing very fancy, but um, yeah, that one's that's considered one of our signature tracks.
okay. And the next one, number 4, is the serial kind. This is a few notes about this one. It's a little bit slower than the other ones, more melodic, not quite as like metal, but slower, more melodic. I guess lyrically, it reminded me of Natural Born Killers, kind of like the
Hmm.
glorification of
Yep.
serial killers or mass murders. And the vocals in this, I'm sure it's not you.
No.
Is that Tony doing the
Oh
vocals?
no, no, no. That's another very, very, very special guest. That's Alex Mitchell from Circus of Power.
So he's from Toronto. Alex is from Toronto.
Hmm.
Or Circle of
Yes,
well, I
and
think no,
that's
no, yeah, Alex is from Toronto. Circle of Power is from New York. But wow, that's Alex Mitchell.
yeah, uh-huh, yeah. Well, this whole thing came about is like, okay, let's do a hard rock number in the record, right? Like we always try to do that. Like the previous one had Turn It Up, and then the very first one had, I don't know, like we always like kind of like try to explore like the hard rock area, right? And then we came up with this idea of doing a very bluesy hard rock dancey type of thing, where the lyrics were like about a serial killer, but from the perspective of the serial killer, right?
Mm,
And this is when that show Dexter was happening, right? And a reviewer put it best. He said, "Okay, the serial kind is like for real. It's not like oh, what if the serial killer is my best friend and he's my neighbor and he's so nice, right? Like this is greedy, right?" So when we were demoing this song and all that, like I was like, I can't, I'm not, that's not, my voice is not sounding how this should be. Like we need someone like Alex Mitchell from Circus of Power. That'd be perfect, right? Like he's a little bit like Ian from the Cult, and
yeah.
and then well, why Circus of Power? This is another very interesting story, right? Like when I was young and living in Mexico, um, I had a satellite dish, and this was I lived with my grandparents, and the satellite dish was shared with the 20 floors, so you could not move it. So it was always on the Galaxy satellite that played the HBO and Showtime and Disney Channel, like all the mainstream stuff, right? That was the public consensus. So the neighbors would like pay their monthly fee or whatever, and they would share one dish, and you could change the channels on your unit, but you could not move the dish. And then when I moved out with my mom after living with my grandparents, my mom she was like very happy with the dish, so she wanted her own. So she got it, but no one in the building really cared about the dish. So we had it to ourselves, so we could actually move it. And this was well in Mexico City, like as convoluted it is, and it's far from the satellites and all that. It was a miracle to get like crazy signals, right? Like such as MTV and stuff like that. I
Oh,
remember you'd have to like find the satellite, and then there would be no image, no audio, and then you would have to leave the TV on that channel for hours, like 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, and then all of a sudden the image would kick in randomly, poop, and then you'd have to wait another 2 hours for the sound to kick in, right? So that's how I grew up watching MTV, right? I would pop in a blank tape on the VCR, wait hours, like hey, no one touch the TV. I'm trying to watch MTV, like,
oh my God.
and then eventually fuck audio, like, and I would just press record, and whatever it was, I would like record and watch over and over and over and over again, right? So one day I'm home alone. I got the whole satellite dish for myself, and I'm just like going as far as I can. And then all of a sudden, I got the Morton Downey Jr. talk
Ah,
show, and they had Joey Ramone, Alex Mitchell, and they're basically fighting in the talk show against a nerd that thinks that that music is filth and it's garbage and it's destroying the youth. And I'm like, I see Alex Mitchell. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy, right? And he's like
covered in
covered
tattoos.
in
Yeah.
tattoos, and he looks like a fucking biker, and he's like putting the nerd on his place, and the nerd is like you can do that shit to your body, but like you look like you crawled out of a garbage pail. And Alex Mitchell is like, well, this is rock and roll. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy, right? And I'm like Circus of Power, like stuck in my head, like, whoa, right? And then I eventually got the records. First, I got in the wrong way. I got Magic and Mayhem, I believe is the name. The third one first, the last one they did, and then I learned about Vices and the Safe Taldo Lab, and I was like obsessed with this band, and no one knew who the hell they were, right? So uh, I started following their MySpace, which was run by some random guy in the Midwest called Bob. He only went by Bob, right? Had no affiliation with the band, nothing. He was just an obsessed fan that was aware that there was no information and there was nothing on Circus of Power online. So that was his way of putting things on the band out there, right? And then this Bob guy decided to do a tribute record, and he was like, there's no contracts, there's no handshake, like, just give me your Circus of Power song and I will put it on a CDR and I will sell it on the website for $5 or whatever, right? So we're like, hey, we're doing this. So we did Mama Tequila. You can find it on YouTube. And Miss Randall singing, and it's like the whole Circus of Power like experience with our sound. And this when the tribute record came out, they have actually very interesting people there. They have Erie Vaughn of Danzig fame performing a song, and they have the Confederacy of Horsepower, which is a guy, Joe Casher, from some one of those bands from like the scene when Circus of Power was out in New York, and just random bands like a band from Brazil playing, like a stoner band playing Circus of Power. It's like a good compilation, right? And this got a hold of Alex Mitchell, so he hit us up like, "Hey guys, I loved your cover, right?" And we're like, oh, well, good thing you hit us up because we are actually looking for you. We're about to go to the studio, and we're doing this song about serial killers. And he said, like, would you sing with us, right? A duet. And he said like, yeah, for sure. So we took him to the studio, which Possessor we did at Raymond Herrera of Fear Factory fame. He used to have a studio with Be Real from Cypress Hill, like a
Yeah.
shared studio, right? And the engineer they assigned us, Jeremy Blair, he was one of the many engineers on Chinese Democracy. So Gary Sunshine, the original guitar player in Circus of Power, was kind of like the only guy that made it after Circus of Power, like big time, and he's a very renowned session musician and plays like crazy, like the guitar, and he has done a billion soundtracks and session playing for like very famous artists and stuff like that. So when we bring Alex Mitchell, oh, this is Alex from Circus of Power, the engineer is like, oh my God, Circus of Power! Like I just worked with Gary Sunshine on Chinese Democracy. So they hit it off immediately, right? And we're recording the song, and then Alex said, "Hey guys, I did some spoken word. Do you mind if I put this on the song?" And we're like go ahead, like whatever you want. So he went to the engineer and he said, hey, that mid instrumental section, like, can you extend it? And the guy was like, yeah, for sure. So copy and paste, he added more bars of rhythm. And then Alex started like doing like this awesome like spoken word
Yeah.
poetry, and then he did it, and he said like, okay, I'm gonna do it in one microphone, now I'm gonna do it in another track on another microphone. And he starts like overlaying all this like crazy shit. Like he says like, I'm the Green River Killer, I'm the Richard Speck, and then that's overtime. It's like, yeah, like you see my face in T-shirts and like all
That's
this
right.
like. And no, we were like very happy with that. We
I'm
became
he
very.
says, I'm more famous than the biggest rock star or something like that.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then he was just Circus of Power style, no shirt with his bandana, just like getting those pipes going. Like this was like such a like an amazing thing to witness, right? And then all the stories, of course. And then we always dreamt of actually doing the serial kind with him on stage, but we never crossed paths. Well, uh, funny thing here, I was actually very instrumental in Circus of Power getting back together, right? Because when we talked, I was like, man, like Circus of Power is like amazing. Like, why are you guys not active? And he's like, well, the guys, they don't want to play. The Chud Master, the other guitar player, like he's seemed like very not interested and very wishy washy. And Alex had this whole vision, like if we're gonna bring the band back together, it has to be with the original members. And I was basically like, Alex, that's bullshit. You are Circus of Power. You could do Circus of Power with any other musicians. And he was like, hey, you know what? That's actually, I never thought about myself like that, but like he was like very thankful. And then shortly after, they played at the Knitting Factory with half members and half new members. And then years later, he full fledged. He just went at it, and they've done like 4 records already or something like that afterwards, right? I went to see them uh, at the Viper Room, and that's where I actually got to meet in person Del James, who was there to see them, and they're pretty active right now. And he does videos, he does records,
Oh, I
he
didn't
the
know.
he does books. When he was like off, um, he would do like, you remember when the tribute album Craze, and he sings on the tribute to Bon Jovi. He was like, oh, they gave me $200 for singing Runaway or something, right? And then we finally crossed paths. So we're playing a festival at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. We're opening in the morning, and Circus of Power is actually playing like 3 bands above us. So we were like, Alex, like you need to show up early, right? But then they moved our set even earlier. So by the time we got to the song, we're just like calling out like, Alex Mitchell, is Alex Mitchell in the house? And then Tony was like, well, I don't think he's here. So he grabs the microphone and say, Alex, if you're doing coke in the bathroom, like we need you here on stage. And everyone left, but yeah, no Alex Mitchell. And then by the time Circus of Power played, uh, Miss Randall did Mama Tequila with them, and she also did that at the Viper Room. Like whenever we cross paths, but it has worked to his favor, but not to ours. Like one day I will get to do Serial Kind with him live. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. I was just at El Chopo the other day and I saw, not only did I see, I took note of it and I picked it up and I looked at it and I almost bought it, the first Circus of Power record.
Oof,
This was just
amazing
like
record.
3 days ago. Yeah. And instead from that same bin, they had a bin that everything was 200 pesos, which in Mexico is about as cheap as you'll find. Instead, I bought the Cruzados After Dark. But I
Hmm.
did see that first Circus of Power record just a couple days ago at El Chopo.
Yeah, that's a great record. I got mine signed and dedicated. He did that at the recording session. I was like, oh, of course I have to bring my Circus of Power record and a Sharpie.
Yeah. Okay, next song, we're up to number 5. Those Who Flee from the Sun. I don't know why, but I love that song title. This one was far more than any other songs. This had a real punk feel to it. You could
Absolutely.
hear the punk in this song.
It's Slayer on Hell Awaits. They have that song At Dawn They Sleep. Yeah, and it's about like vampires and that sort of thing. So I wanted to do a vampire song, and that was like the biggest point of reference, right? And especially now that Kerry King has been like trashing John Ryan, saying he doesn't know how to play bass. I recorded
Yeah, I
everything.
was surprised at that he
Yeah.
said that Kerry King has played bass on the
Yeah.
Slayer album since the mid 90s or
Well,
something. I
there was I heard Hell Awaits. I loved it. I knew all the songs, but it wasn't until I saw a video called Live Intrusion from 1990. No, what is it? Yeah, Live Intrusion. I think it is
Yeah.
from 1994. They play that song, and you can see Tom Araya like rip on the bass. Like he's so good, especially on that song. And because it's got newer 90s production, you can actually tell what he's doing, and you can actually see it on the video, right? So that was a very significant for me, right? So I wanted to
Mm,
do something like that, right? So it's got that Tom Araya type of thing. It's very punky, very trashy, and this is one of the ones I do the lead vocals on, and yeah, that was the whole intention. And also going back to, okay, we did the serial killers and we also did the vampires because Twilight was a thing at the time, right? So
oh, the TV series.
yeah, or whatever that shit is, right? So yeah, like I told you, a reviewer said like these guys, when they sing about serial killers and vampires, they know what they're talking about. Serial killers are not your best friends, and they don't live in Miami or something, and then vampires don't glow, it said, they bite.
Okay. All right, next 6 is Wings of a Demon. This is one that I mentioned earlier. This is just a straight up, flat out metal song. This is a
Yeah.
heavy metal song. Wings of a Demon.
Yeah, this one Tony came up with the riff, right? And the movies The Exorcist, the second one not a lot of people like because it's psychological, and they found out to be boring, but like to me an amazing movie. And it was Ennio Morricone that did the soundtrack, and
Oh,
just the theme song, it's so unsettling and disturbing, right? Like it's I don't think I've heard a lot of music that's actually like scary like that. Just no lyrics, no nothing. Just well, actually, it has a kind of like this African kind of like chants and like very tribal, and it's just like flat out like scary, right? And there's this whole thing in the movie, which the sample is actually in the recording where um there's like this locust plague, and the I believe the priest or whatever gets possessed, and he's like flying like on top, like his vision is on top of the locust, and the locust is like flying through Egypt, or I don't even remember where they're at, or Jerusalem or whatever the hell, right? and he says the demon says, "Fly the teeth of the wing, share my wings." And then he said, "I saw it. It was on the wings of a demon, right?" So I
Mm,
was like, hey, that makes like a perfect
song
song
title.
title. This
Yeah.
riff is like kind of like that. Let's make it a very, very heavy, very unsettling, like that sort of thing, and throw in the samples.
Okay.
And this one also has Claudio doing the synths.
Oh, from Goblin. He's on that one too.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Next is now going back to Mondo Cane. I'm not sure if this is also Italian or Latin, but it's Malefice, Malefice,
Yep. Well, Malefice, but yeah,
Malefice. Oh,
kind of.
I was
Uh
gonna
huh.
say Malefice. I thought that was too easy.
And this one was well, there's the intermission, right? So we
Right.
wanted to now just like Goblin and stuff like that. We said like, hey, what if we attempted to do something that was soundtrack style, right? So it's bass and synths and a little guitar, but it's completely instrumental and it's just a little ditty, like 122 minutes, just like kind of like
117. Yeah,
yeah.
117. And it makes a lot more sense to me. Actually, there are a few things about this album that make more sense to me now that you've explained it. That it's more cinematic. Yeah,
It's
it's just a short instrumental
a
interlude.
palette cleanser for what's
Yeah,
about
something
to
to
come.
start
Yeah.
the next act,
Uh-huh.
something like
Yeah.
that. Okay. All right.
Hmm.
Which then leads us to the next one is some it's hard to say. I always want to say somnambul, but it's
Somnambulist.
somnambulist possession. This is another one that had especially in the beginning, had a real mastodon feel to it.
Oh yeah.
Um, big mastodon feel to this one. And of course, I have to ask, what the hell is somnambulist possess? Well, I know what
So
possession is. What is
uh
somnambulist?
it's also an Exorcist reference, and it's a
Oh,
little bit of a Pantera pun, because the album A Vulgar Display of Power is
of course.
a quote from the Exorcist. Like the priest says to the demon, he says like, "Okay, show yourself," and she is like, "What? Show myself? That would be a vulgar display of power," right? So the somnambulist possession, it is also a quote from the movie when they're running all the tests at the hospital and they cannot find what the girl has, right? So one of the scientists, they says,
Oh,
well, it seems like a case of psychosis or whatever. And the mom is like, psychosis, what are you talking about? And then she goes to the priest and he says like, well, this is what the doctor said or something like that. And then the priest says, well, it sounds like a case of somnambulist possession.
oh, so it's a diagnosis of
Yeah, from
Reagan.
the
Was that her name in
yeah,
Exorcist? Yeah.
I don't remember if I think it's from the church standpoint. I don't remember, but we were like, hey, you know what? Like that's a great song title.
Okay.
And kind of a little bit like Fear of the Dark, right? And um, that you turn off the lights and the demon's still there, type of thing. And the intro, which is the bass riff played backwards, that I totally stole from the Mexican band Phobia, that has a song called La Iguana, which starts with the guitar riff from the song but played backwards. And I was like, hey, that sounds very interesting. I want to try to do something like that. And we wanted to do the shreddiest solo we could, and Tony wasn't happy about this, right? But we said, hey, Tony, you're not gonna play the solo for this song. And he's like, well, what do you mean? Like, well, you're only gonna play it live. uh, we want to bring in another guest to do the solo, and it was going to be Nida Strauss that
Was it
we
was going to be or it is?
it was going to be. And we
Ah, okay.
try we try well, here's the story. When we were out and about recording the first Los Angeles record, that was Somnambulist Possession, we were going to all these clubs and all these things. So this we saw Nida play and growl on a band she used to be at the time. She was like, shit, she was probably like 18 years old or something like that. She was like
Yeah.
very, very young. We saw her and we right away like spotted the talent. So we befriended her and we tried to convince her to play with us. And because Tony was like in and out at the moment, he took a hiatus, and we're like, "Hey, you know what, we need star quality, we need talent." And then she was like, "Hey, you know what, I love Rusty Eye, but I have a rule: if I play in a band, I have to be the only girl."
Oh, come on.
And then
But she wasn't playing it. Okay. All right.
she tried to she was gonna do a record with Miss Randall, and then that didn't happen. And then she was gonna play solo again on Dissecting Shadows, but now she was like too busy. And and I don't remember what was the reason on this one, but it's like, okay, who's going to do the solo, right? And when we were at the studio, uh we kind of like ran out of budget, and we had a little bit of a disagreement, and we were not able to finish like mixing. So it was a poisoned leather that we didn't get to mix. So we're like, oh shit, we spent all this money, and now they're kicking us out of the studio and we haven't finished. So we hit up Valdemar Sorichta,
Yeah, I
uh,
just saw that in the liner
the
notes.
famous producer. He's responsible for all the European Gothic metal, and like you name it, Lacuna Coil, Samael, like everything that's dark, female fronted, Doom, European Doom, of course, Gothic metal. Like he was like the producer for that. And he not a lot of people know he's a crazy crazy shredder. I know him not as a producer, I know him because he's the prodigy guitar player that Lombardo got when he quit Slayer and he did Grip Pink. So I used to see this
Mm,
guy on Guitar Magazine and all that, like crazy Polish German dude. And we got to know him. We talked about producing, like him producing Possessor, but they didn't work with Pro Tools. And us being here and him being there and mixing was going to add a lot of work to like send him the files. So we did for the last song, but we said like, hey, you know what? Well, we didn't know at the moment, but we said like, hey, we're not gonna be able to do the record with you, but would you like to do a guest solo? So he did the solo for Somnambulist Possession. And fast forward, he's doing records with Miss Randall nowadays. Like they just
mm.
put out something called Karina, which is just like his traditional style. He plays the guitar, the bass, and Julieta is singing and playing the drums. I don't think it did very good because they don't have a label or promotion, but it's out there, right? So she actually got to do a full record with him. Crazy talented producer and musician.
Okay. Um, Now the next one, and I have a few things to say about this. I guess there's a problem here. I think you don't know, and this is the next one is Jerusalem Cricket Souffle.
Uh huh.
Now I haven't listened to the actual record yet, the vinyl. All the times I've listened to this album, it's been digitally.
And
I
yeah,
download it from Bandcamp. Do you know what the problem is?
no.
It's double uploaded. The one that's listed on your Bandcamp as Jerusalem Cricket Souffle is Somnambulist Possession again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I have to.
when I listened to it last night, when Jerusalem Cricket Souffle started, I thought, what the fuck? Is this the same song? And
I
then I
need to
went to
get
your
that checked.
Bandcamp and I thought maybe I downloaded it wrong or something. But I went back to your Bandcamp and yeah, if you play Jerusalem Cricket Souffle, it's actually Somnambulist Possession
Oh,
for the
it's
second time.
great. You let me know that that needs to be fixed,
Yeah.
especially because Jerusalem Cricket is it's basically the base showcase, right? Like that's my anesthesia pulling teeth, right? So
Ah, yeah. So I did, I wanted to talk about it. So I did listen to it on the actual record. So I listened to
mhm.
it on the record last night. Um, and yeah, it's another instrumental. It's another weird one. It's kind of herky jerky.
Mm,
Kind of pulls you in weird directions. Um, and what the fuck is a Jerusalem cricket souffle?
it's a potato bug. It's the known in Mexico as the cara de niño. You
I know the ones that curl up into a ball, right?
No, it,
No?
it looks like the most hideous creature you've ever seen. To this day, people swear that they're poisonous and they're uh, bad and whatnot. No, it's just like it just looks horrible. It's a look it up on Google. Potato bug. It's
I remember potato bugs even when I lived in Canada. They were small, maybe about the size of a ladybug, a little bit
this thing
bigger.
is like
And if
3 inches long.
then that's totally different. The potato
Different
bugs that
thing.
I know,
Yeah,
they're pretty small, and they if you touch them, they curl up into a
it's the
ball.
it's
Like
the Jerusalem cricket or potato bug. Maybe in Canada they refer to potato bug as something else, right? So this
definitely.
is basically a pun on rat salad.
Oh,
Like,
Black Sabbath.
yeah, what can be? It's an instrumental, and what can be more disgusting than a rat salad? Well, Jerusalem cricket souffle.
You know what? It's funny
That's
that
the
you mentioned
pun.
that. I remember when I talked about paranoid on this series that I do a couple of months ago, and I said when I was a kid, because I got paranoid when I was about 10 years old. And I
Hmm.
remember thinking, what first of all, same thing, what the fuck is a rat salad? And it kind of scared me a little bit. All
Yeah,
those
right.
Black Sabbath songs, Rat Salad and Fairies Wear Boots and Jack the Stripper. I was all
Yeah.
what is all this stuff?
No, that's
Okay.
that's exactly it. And it's well, it's a pun, and it's a homage to the great bass players, Geezer Butler,
Okay.
Steve
Ah, that
Harris,
makes sense.
Geddy Lee, and it has the rhyme of the ancient mariner, right? Like it has that part that rips off the that part where you actually hear the wooden planks on the boat creaking,
Oh, the
dum,
creaking
dum,
sound.
dum, 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 dum. So it's
Oh,
kind
I'll
of
have
like
to listen to it again and pay more attention to that.
the intent was like to totally rip off that part and make it even crazier and more intense, right? So instead of just going dun 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 dun, then it goes da 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 dun 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 da 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 da. It's but it's totally an homage to Steve Harris, to Geddy Lee, Geezer
This
Butler.
is the there it is there.
Yeah, look at that. It's scary. It's disgusting.
Yeah, that's not the
Well,
potato bugs that I know.
it's
Okay.
people don't know, but it's actually harmless. But it's
Of
got
course,
the
most
it's
bugs
got
are.
the it's got the evil looks. Looks like a demonic creature, and that's why Joe drew it on the cover, like together with like demons and shit. And that bad review they gave us, the guy said, "Yep." The guy said, "What is this thing like sugar skulls?" And they even got like flying ants on the cover.
Ah,
Well, someone didn't get the point at all, but yeah.
okay. The next is the entity, subtitled Ghostly Lust. This one is a little bit slower, quieter, and
Yep.
I think this one was only you're not on this one, right? Not vocally. This is
No.
only Miss Randall.
Well,
This is
once
her
again,
solo.
traditions, right? You have to have a ballad. So every
Yeah.
single record we have, well, like, not necessarily like the one to be with you or more than words,
No, no, no.
but like
A
slower
quiet one.
song. So this is one of the Rusty Eye ballads, and then we said like, well, it's a ballad. How do we make it gnarly, right? So
Mhm.
the entity is a movie, kind of like Poltergeist, like a young couple moves into a house, that sort of thing. But then the woman's getting raped by a ghost in the house, and then she kind of like falls in love with him, and that's basically where the lyrics come from. So it's a ballad, but the woman with the character is in love with the ghost.
Yeah, that's the same with I don't know if you know this band or this album. I'm sure you know the band. You know Sacrifice from
Hmm.
Toronto, the thrash band.
Yep. Hmm.
They had a song called The Entity on that was on Forward Determination.
And I'm
And I think
assuming it's about the same subject matter.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a very, very famous movie.
yeah.
And actually, that one's not underground. It's kind of mainstreamy, but the subject matter is it's hard. So it's the you know what, like all these ballads and I love you and more than word. Like, what if now it's a ghost, that evil entity in the house?
Yeah, and actually going back to Sacrifice, they also had you mentioned Reanimator, the movie some time ago, and Sacrifice also had Reanimation. So a couple of Sacrifice Rusty Eye connections there. Um
And
next
musically,
mhm.
uh, a big inspiration uh for the bass was the Stone Temple Pilots song. What is it? Creep.
That's from the first album from Core.
Yeah. Uh huh.
Yeah, the kind of a ballady song. I never liked
It's
that album that much. The
it's got
second album was great.
that deep snare and the bass and the so it was like kind of like in that kind of something like that. That was
Okay.
the intent.
No, it's kind of funny that you wouldn't expect Stone Temple Pilots to have an influence or an impact on a Rusty Eye song.
Well, on a ballad, I guess, because
Yeah, maybe.
here's the thing, ballads are too cliche. So it's like, okay, how do we make a soft song that doesn't sound like just with a clean guitar in the beginning? That,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
you
not
know,
Love Is on the Way
yeah,
by
exactly,
Saigon Kick. Okay.
exactly.
All right. Next is a poison letter. This had just every I don't know how long, every few seconds it seems like there's big tempo changes. Overall, the song was is pretty slow, but there's like almost I would say like borderline blast beats in this
Yep.
song.
Hmm.
Very thrashy beats in this one. Another one. This one is all over the place,
Yep.
tempo wise.
This one was. I tell you, with it, we had to mix it elsewhere to finish the
Yeah, you
record, right?
mentioned that earlier.
And well, the approach is like completely different because now it's Valdemar and all his like gothic metal and if I remember correctly, he actually also played keyboards in it. Yeah, he did. So he added keyboards, I think, and uh, this one was pretty.
No, he's not on keyboards
It's
on
not on
this
keyboard.
one.
Oh,
No, it's what song are we talking about?
Poisoned Leather.
Poison Letter. No, he mixed. Yeah, it says mixed that he mixed it, but
Yeah,
no, Valdemar is only credited for guitar solo on Somnambulist
Summer's
Possession
Possession.
and keyboards on the next track,
Mm,
Mandragora Screams.
there you go. That's the one he played keyboards in. Yeah,
Yep.
I get the mix because he was like a little bit over all over three tracks, right? But this one in particular, he did at his studio, right? And um I liked it, but I did feel that it was a little different than the rest of the record. But that's just me. I mean, you wouldn't notice, right? But the like his approach was different, and I remember going back and forth because I wanted the bass in particular to sound like the bass in the other songs. Like in this like metal style, like usually the bass doesn't play a very important role, right? So he did it like very generic, where the bass is just there, but you can't really hear it, right? So I was like, oh, no, bring it. I don't know if you need to bring it up or EQ it, but like needs to sound like the others, right?
Mm.
So maybe I was
Yeah.
never a big fan of this one, probably because of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, I would never notice that. And I think the average person who's going to listen to
Yeah,
this, even the above average person who's going to listen to this, is not going to notice. But yeah, I guess when it's your music, you say, oh, you know what? It's like if you do a photo shoot and there was one photo that was taken on a
right,
different
right.
day, maybe the other,
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that it
You
stands
know,
out.
yes, exactly. But you know how they say magicians
Don't
should not
reveal
say
their
their
tricks.
secret. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. But yeah, and then the next one, Mandragora Screams.
Oh
This
yeah,
one like was done like to be the closer, right? Not considering the little outro aside. And you
right.
probably also noticed that the vinyl version doesn't have
I was
the
gonna say that. Yeah, the last song is Rituales de Sangre.
yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, and the Mandragora screams was kind of symphonic. There was
Yes.
you know, it was kind of dramatic, which now makes more sense, you know, than more than when I've listened to it before. That you've told me it's kind of like a, not quite a concept album, but you had this cinematic
Right.
scope to it. Yeah, Mandragora screams is you know symphonic, and yeah, maybe a little
It's
bit
very
dramatic.
that one. You know what? Like in hindsight, Valdemar should have actually mixed that one because that one's the most gothic metal song on the record,
Mm,
and it has that scream in the end. That's actually kind of like similar to what he actually did with the band Moonspell and their what
mm,
is it, the Wolfheart. Like that's one song ends with a high pitched female scream like that, and that one, like I said, it was meant to be the closer, and he did Valdemar did the keyboards. And this one, a very interesting thing about it is that we never really like played it live. Like we didn't put much emphasis on it, but it turned out to be a fan favorite like years later, right? Like that's I found that to be very interesting because it happens like you think you know which songs are going to perform better than others, but you
yeah,
don't really know until the people actually make the choice, right? So that one became a fan favorite, and we started like bringing it into the set, although these ones are actually like kind of like hard to play. So it's like, oh, like let's try not to play that one.
yeah. All right, and then we'll finish up, yeah, with the last track that, as you mentioned, it's not on the record, but it is on the digital version Bandcamp. And what was the reason for that? Just not enough space on the how long is this
Yes,
record? Is this song
exactly.
is it what, about 45, 50 minutes, this record?
I think it's 50 something or
Oh, it's
49. I'm looking at it,
yeah,
49
yeah.
13.
All right,
So you traditional, if you want the best sound, but I mean you can put whatever you want on it, but if you want like the
right,
best quality, you should not exceed 27 and 27 minutes per side.
right.
And because this one wasn't originally meant, now we do records thinking on the format, right, on the vinyl.
Mhm.
This one wasn't made for that. We didn't know, and we kind of like had to adapt it. And I don't know if you remember back in the day, you'd get like a CD only bonus and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
of course.
Due
Yep.
to especially in that
Mhm.
transition from vinyl to CD, right? Or they would do it for the CD, and then in the 90s, then everyone got crazy and filled out the whole
Yeah.
76,
Yeah,
which
it's
was
too long.
horrible because
I know,
the
I know.
makes the
I've
record
talked
too
about that
long.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the best, going off topic a little bit, all the best albums are 35 minutes, you know? All the Van Halen, Kiss, Beatles records are all 30, 35 minutes. You know, the Black Sabbath records and AC/DC, I think they're around 40. Yeah, and then after that, you know, in the late 80s, early 90s, when bands started doing, you know, 70, 72, 73-minute albums, too much, too long.
So this one, um it's very tribal and stuff like that, and you hear like some old women like kind of like weeping and screaming. That's actually a sample from Mondo Cane. And it's how you've probably seen those interviews with Ronnie James Dio, that he says that he learned the devil
His
horns from his
grandmother?
grandmother, and so
Yeah, the Word Away Evil.
it's a funeral in the middle of nowhere in Italy, and you have all the old women in the town screaming like banshees and doing the horns to ward off the demons so they don't get
Ah, okay.
in the casket, right? So uh, we we sampled that, and put like this tribal rhythms and all that stuff, and that was just like the outro.
Yeah, and I mentioned when we started this that there was and I think you knew what I was referring to, and I'd kind of forgotten until now. There was one, the very first, the opening of Rituales de Sangre. that sample reminded me of a white zombie. When I heard that, I thought, oh, it's going to be a white zombie song.
Yeah, well, the
Kind of,
sampling was learned from White Zombie, especially the Grindhouse movies and all that.
yeah.
Like he uses that all throughout.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that was that's where we got that from, and it kind of like became uh, a thing uh, to use that because it kind of like enhances that whole movie thing and all that. Like, although we don't do it like in sequence, like White Zombie does, where it's like kind of like part
Hmm.
of the bit, right? Like, but these little things where people that are into this type of thing, like they can figure out where it came from, and oh, that's from that movie, or you're making movie recommendations through it once they figure that out. Or I mean, some people have caught on it, others haven't, but little Easter eggs type of thing, which is
Okay.
also who masters that art tool. Everything's a
I was
reference
never
to
into
something,
Tool, and
and
still not into Tool.
me certain things, but that's something I really liked about them, how they make those everything you can Google and learn something.
Yeah. All right, and that's it. That's the album. Thank you, Mr. Russ, for your time. Now, I did mention, and I remembered, there was one last thing I was going to talk about before I let you go. Eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that you're not a real person; you're an avatar. Now,
Yes.
I know what this is about, but maybe you can explain. And I don't know how much you're allowed to, or how much you're willing or want to talk about it, why you're an avatar.
Yeah, no, of course.
Give me, or give everybody, whoever, I don't know how many people are watching again, but let's hear why you're an avatar.
Well, this is actually a test run. This is the second time I do it on calls. Just needed to make sure it worked fine. But I'm planning to launch a web show called Hesher Talk, and this is something I've been trying to do for the longest time. Now I'm finally getting to the final stages. Now I just need to find some time to start recording the episodes with the co-host. And the whole idea was to do a record review type of like show. And of course, Dambowski, you are one of the influences to do this because I was like, hey, I really enjoy your shows, and it's a great source of knowledge and how you pick the records and the classics and do your like track by track and all that stuff. I've been very bummed out. Like one thing I like about yours, and this is something that bums me out about what people are doing nowadays and out there and all that. Like especially these big brands like Banger TV or whatever, right? Like all the stuff they source is coming from publicists, and they're just
Yeah,
basically like going by the opinion of the industry. Like if they really don't like something or they like something, they are not honest about it. They cannot say, oh, I like this, I like that. And also there's never a real focus on the classics, or they say, oh, like let's rank the albums, or let's talk about the classic. And it's not honest opinion, right? And these are the channels that are getting all the views, and then you have channels like yours that actually have the knowledge, but the
nobody
like you don't have
watches.
the audio. Yeah, exactly,
I
right. So
know.
I'm like, how do I bridge the gap, right? So the conclusion was to make something entertaining and different, and so I came up with the idea of doing puppets, and then animating them with the webcam, right? And it took me a while to get the puppets done. I got them done in Mexico City. They had to take the pictures and Photoshop all the mouth positions. I still have a lot to perfect, right? Like look at the arms.
I was
I
gonna
st-
ask you about that. So when your avatar is turning to the side like that okay, so it is mimicking your real movements. That's what I
yeah,
thought. Okay.
that's my head and
Yeah.
my eyebrows. I
Mhm.
still have to calibrate a couple of things, right? Like the blinking. I can get it to blink, but it's not as sensitive, right? Because
Oh yeah,
I'm
I can
probably a
see.
little far away from the camera. I can change the t-shirt As you can
I was
see,
gonna
for
ask that too. Are you actually wearing a Gene Simmons T-shirt?
yeah, yeah, especially for
You
the
really are
occasion.
wearing the shirt? Ah, that's cool. I thought maybe that was just
Well, the
like,
puppet is.
part of the effects.
I'm actually wearing a carcass shirt, but I
Ah,
changed
okay, okay.
the.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I thought if you were physically
I can change the print on the T-shirt, right?
okay.
So we're gonna do those reviews, right? I'm thinking. I think the first episode's gonna be Injustice for All, which is very
Oh,
commented. Oh, it doesn't have bass and Jason Newsted and all the like, kind of like to set the record straight and
that's
voice
right.
a little bit of a better form, the fan opinion that just what people are repeating just because they heard it somewhere else, type of thing. And we're also want to do a news segment where we grab all the news from the month, and kind of like what they do on SNL with their news thing, like kind of like make fun of the news, right? Because this rock and roll news, like they just get like once again, uh, they make everything newsworthy, and like it's a reason to kind of like trash what paparazzi, Nikki Six, beat on the weekend and all that. Like they make the news and then people take it too seriously, and no, it's like the purpose here is say like what the fuck kind of news are that, like that's not news. So we're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna make fun of them, and the app, like basically record reviews, and then we're gonna grab records that are considered bad that could actually be good, or records that are bad and are real bad, and masterpieces and all that, and then just like talk, just like you do, like extendedly dig in and talk about them, right? So Hesher Talk coming soon, and I don't know when, because believe it or not, I can't find the time to actually sit down and record the episodes, right? I'm planning to do the whole season in a couple of days, and then eventually start editing and put them on schedule until next season, right? But just haven't found the time. But now technically everything is ready, and of course we want to have guests. That's why I've been testing these calls and StreamYard and all that, so we can actually
Mm,
talk to people. Of course, on the Kiss episode, you're gonna be invited to talk to the puppets, just like we are doing right now.
cool. I'm excited. All right. All right. That was excellent. Very, very thorough, very informative. Thank you, Mr. Russ, for taking the time
No, absolutely.
out of your surely busy schedule out there in Hollywood, and I hope to see you in Mexico. Oh, you know what? Lily is going to LA tomorrow. She'll be in
Oh,
LA
really?
tomorrow.
Oh,
I
she
just
should hit
realized
me
that.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized that now. Yeah, she's going with her family to well, they're flying obviously into LA, but they're staying in Anaheim.
Ah,
It's Semana Santa, so they're yeah, I just realized that now. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll let her know that I was talking to you today. All right. Thank you very much, Mr.
all
Rustin,
right.
for everybody who made it through this. You're a miracle child. And this is called Rusty Eye. It's Possessor, and we'll do another episode to talk about dissecting shadows
Oh yeah,
at
for
some point.
sure. That one has very interesting stories too.
Okay. So until then, for on behalf of Mr. Rust and myself, thank you if you stayed around, and Rusty Eye Possessor. See ya.
All right.